I recently tried to unsubscribe from a service and I couldn't find the unsubscribe button. Now, you might be thinking I didn't search hard enough, but I literally clicked on every button in the entire website and I Googled it and I still couldn't find where to unsubscribe from this monthly recurring payment service. Luckily for me, my credit card had expired anyway, so they couldn't continue deducting the service from my account. But yeah, not a great experience. And today I thought I'd chat about dark UX patterns like the one I just experienced. So let's chat about 10 common dark UX patterns that you might have come across. First things first, let's define what a dark UX pattern is. These patterns or tricks are aimed at manipulating or redirecting users into doing actions that they didn't actually intend to do in the first place. A very typical dark UX pattern that's very common these days is gated content. So basically what that means is that you are required to sign up for an account with an email and a password before you can actually see any of the content. This has become kind of acceptable in the norm these days, but it is a little bit on the darker side of things. It's an easier way for the app to increase traffic or to create conversions, but it's not necessarily seen as ethical. Often these patterns play on users' psychology, kind of using it against them, and it's mostly in the self-interest of the product. For example, if I can't unsubscribe from your paid service, you're making money off of me, even though my intention is to cancel my subscription. Okay, let's chat about the 10 common dark UX patterns you might have come across. So the first one is bait and switch. So the information might tell you one thing, but when you click on the action, that's not actually what happens. The second one is hidden costs. This is quite a common one when shipping fees or tax gets added to the cost quite a lot later on in the process. And if you aren't vigilant, you might be a bit confused why the item that you bought for X rand or dollar now has almost doubled in price because of shipping fees or because of hidden costs that they've added in addition to your product. This one I come across quite regularly. I often, I guess just the nature of the job, download apps and obviously have to log in, create a profile and kind of want to play around and see what the app can provide or do. Anyway, so this third one is called forced continuity, and oftentimes they require me to enter my card details even though they're offering me a free trial, because the moment that that free trial ends after 7 days, let's say, then it automatically starts charging my card, which from a company's perspective just seems like, oh, but we're making it so much easier for the user, we don't have to capture the card details later. But it's putting all that onus on the user to actually go and intentionally cancel that subscription before it starts. So technically almost the trial is not entirely free. It's a bit of a gray area, this one. The fourth one is called confirm shaming or trick questions. This is largely to do with the copy on the page. Often copies on the button say things like, I like paying full price for this item. I don't want the discount. Thanks very much. Very much playing on the psychology of the user, telling them that they're missing out on this sweet deal instead of just saying something like dismiss, which is a bit more neutral. It's using very emotive language. The fifth dark UX pattern is disguised ads. I think this has happened to all of us, where you click on something and you think it's an article or it's even an accidental click, and then it turns out that you opened an ad. This also often happens when you try to download free software from the internet. There's normally like this giant download here button, and then it's normally the sub hyperlink text below this giant button that's flashing and neon that actually downloads the app. And that button, the big giant button at the top, takes you to some advert for another product that you weren't interested in. I would love to know if you have come across any dark UX design patterns recently. Let me know in the comments down below what your experience was. Yeah, disguised ads often look very similar to the content, so it's really hard to tell them apart. Number 6 is Roach motel. That is what I experienced recently when it's so easy to subscribe to a service, but when you want to unsubscribe to a service, it's quite another story. I did eventually manage to unsubscribe to that service that I was telling you guys about at the start of this video, but I think I actually had to go back like 2 or 3 days later, and then I tried again, and it was a button that was hidden. I think it was 2 or 3 layers deep. At the start of kind of email newsletters a couple of years, a lot of people were hiding their unsubscribe from this email list button by coloring the text of that button to the same as the background. So the unsubscribe button was technically there on the email, but it was white like the background. So only if you took your mouse and you kind of selected all the text, you saw that there was actually copy that you couldn't read, and if you clicked on that, you were able to unsubscribe from the email. So that was also a sneaky one. Another one that I feel is quite prevalent in our world today is number 7, which is asking for more than you need. Oftentimes these apps ask for way more information than they actually require from you. Say now you are a weight loss app. Asking for somebody's height and weight and age is maybe relevant, but asking them for their middle name and their address is probably irrelevant, because how is that actually beneficial to the service that you are providing them? So I think that in the day and age that we live, a lot of these apps and websites just almost want to data gather from us. Number 8 is triggering fear. So often apps like to do this when it comes to security updates. For example, Facebook did it. If you chose not to enable your facial recognition, it would have some kind of message that says, by not enabling this feature, you could possibly allow people to impersonate you, which is triggering fear. And then the last dark UX pattern that I wanted to discuss today is actually triggering FOMO. This I see a lot these days on e-commerce sites. It's like only 3 left of this item, or 59 people have currently viewed this. It's one of those gray areas when it comes to the ethical side. So now that we've chatted about the 10 most common dark UX patterns, let's chat about why should we avoid it. So there are 5 key reasons to avoiding dark UX patterns. And they include the fact that it will probably hurt your brand image. Dark patterns are illegal. Like I mentioned, California has banned some companies that have done it. It also ruins the customer experience, and in effect ruins that loyalty and trust that brands spend so much time building. And it will probably lead to increased abandonments in your app, or increased, cart abandonments, subscription cancellations, people just subscribing for the 7-day free trial and then canceling their subscription. So as a UX designer, how do you ensure that these dark UX patterns don't get introduced into your designs or aren't suggested by business stakeholders? So firstly, having a good design process that we follow is essential to kind of avoiding going down these routes and accidentally introducing these dark UX patterns. Also, just following the basic design standards and practices. We can also bake empathy into our work process by conducting user interviews and playing back that feedback to our stakeholders and our technical team. Try and encourage your stakeholders and your team to value user experience over vanity metrics like how many subscribers you have or how many visitors have visited your website. Although those things are important, they should not trump the user experience of an app. Lastly, take inspiration from user experience designers that do follow an ethical design process. As always, thanks for sticking around. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!